Frostbite. Chapter 2. Drimmit made one phone call, and a veritable SWAT team showed up. It took a couple of hours though, and every minute spent waiting felt like an year. I finally could not take it anymore and returned her to the car. Drimmit examined the house for them and then came to sit with me. Neither of us said a word while we waited. A slight show of the gold seaside inside the house kept playing in my mind. I felt scared and alone, and I wished he could hold me or comfort me in some way. Immediately, I scolded myself for wanting that. I reminded myself for the thousandth time that he was my instructor and had no business holding me no matter what the situation was. Besides, I wanted to be strong. I don't need to go running to some guy every time things got tough. When the first group of guardians showed up, Drimmit opened the car door and glanced over at me. You should see how this is done. I don't want to see any more of that house, honestly, but I followed anyway. These guardians were strangers to me, but Drimmit knew them. He always seems to know everybody. This group was surprised to find a non voice on the scene, but none of them protested my presence. I walked behind them as they examined the house. None of them touched anything, but they knelt by the bodies and studied the blood stains and broken windows. Apparently, the Strigoi had entered the house, though more than just the front door and back patio. The guardian spoke in the hushed tones, displaying none of the disgust and fear I felt. They were like missions. One of them, the only woman in the group, crouched beside Arthur. I was intrigued since female guardians were so rare. I could hear Drummond call her Tamra, and she looked about 25. Her black hair just barely touched her shoulders, which was common for guardian women. Sadness flicked in her gray eyes as she studied her death of guardian's face. Oh, Arthur, she sighed like Drummond. She managed to convey 100 things in just a couple words. Never thought I could see this day. He was my mentor. With another sign, Tamra rose. Her face had become all businesslike once more, as though the guy who trained her was not lying there in front of her. I could not believe it. He was her mentor. How could she keep that kind of control? For half a heartbeat, I imagined seeing Drimmer dead on the floor instead. No, no way I could have stayed calm in her place. I could have gone on a rampage. I could have screamed and kicked things. I could have hit anyone who tried to tell me things could be okay. Fortunately, I don't believe anyone could actually take down Drimmit. I could seen him kill a Strigoi without breaking a sweat. He was invincible, a badass, a god. Of course, Arthur's Cromback had been too. How could they do that? I blurted out. Six sets of eyes turned to me. I expected a chastening look from Drimmit for my outburst, but he merely appeared curious. How could they kill him? Tamra gave a small stretch, her face still composed. The same way they kill everyone else. He is mortal, just like the rest of us. Yes, but he is, you know, Arthur Scromberg. You tell us, Rose, said Drummond. You have seen the house. Tell us how they did it. All as they all watched me, I suddenly realized I might be undergoing a test. After all today, I thought about what I could observe and hear. I swallowed, trying to figure out how the impossible could be possible. There were 4 points of entry, which means at least four strigoi. There were seven moroi. The family who lived here had been entertaining some of the other peoples, making the mascara that much larger. Three of the victims have been children, and three guardians. Too many kills. Four Strigoi could not have taken down that many. Six probably could if they went for the guardians first and caught them by surprise. The family could have been too panicked to fight back. And how did they catch the guardians by surprise? Drummond prompted. I hesitated. Guardians, as a general rule, don't get caught by surprise because the ward was broken in her household without wards. There probably be a guardian walking the yard at night, but they could not have done that there. I waited for the next obvious question about how the vase have been broken, but Drummond didn't ask it. There was no need. We all know. We could all see the stake. Again, a chill ran down my spine. Humans working with Strigoi, a large group of Strigoi. Drummond simply nodded as a sign of approval, and the group continued their survey. We reached a bathroom, I started to avoid my gaze. I have already seen this room with Drummond earlier, and had no wish to repeat the experience. There was a dead man in there, and his dried blood stood out in a stark contrast against the white tile. Also, since the room was more interior, it was not as cold as the area by the open patio. No preservation. The body don't smell bad yet, exactly, but it don't smell right either. But as I started to turn away, I caught a glimpse of something dark, red, more brown, really, on the mirror. I had not noticed it before because the rest of the scene had held all my attention. There was writing on the mirror, done in blood. Poor, poor Badikas. So few left. One royal family nearly gone, others to follow. Tamra snorted in disgust and turned away from the mirror, studying other details of the bathroom. As we walked out, through those words repeated in my head, one royal family nearly gone, others to follow. The Batikas was one of the smaller royal clans. It was true, but it was hardly like those who have been killed here were the last of them. There were probably almost 200 Batikas left. That was not as many as the family, like, say, the Ishwaks. That particular royal family was a huge and widespread. There were, however, a lot more Badikas than there have some of other royals, like the Dragmorois. Lisa was the only one left. If the Strigoi wanted to snuff out royal lines, there was no better chance than to go after her. Moroi blood empowered Strigoi, so I understood their desire for that. I supposed, specifically, targeting royals was simply part of their cruel and sadistic nature. It was ironic that Strigoi could want to tear apart Moroi society since many of them had once been a part of it. The mirror and its warning consumed me for the rest of our stay at the house, and I found my fear and shock transforming into anger. How could they do this? How could any creature could be twisted and evil that they could do this to a family? That they could not want to wipe out an entire bloodline? How could any creature do this when they could once been like me and Lisa? And thinking of Lisa, thinking of Strigoi wanting to wipe out her family too, stripped apart dark rage within me. The intensity of that emotion nearly knocked me over. It was something black and mismac, swelling and roiling. A storm cloud ready to burst. I suddenly wanted to tear up every Strigoi and I could get my hands on. When I finally got into the car to the right back to St. Valdemix with Drimmit, I slammed the door so hard that it was wonder it had not fallen off. He glanced up at me in surprise. What is wrong? Are you serious? I exclaimed, incredulous. How can you ask that? You were there, you saw that. I did, he agreed, but I'm not taking it out on the car. I fastened my seatbelt and growled. I hate them. I hate all of them. I wish I could been there. I could have ripped their throats out. I was nearly shouting. Drummond started at me, face calm, but he was clearly astonished at my outburst. You really think that is true? He asked me. You think you could have done better than I, Scornbag, after seeing that the Strigoi did it there, after seeing what Natalie did to you? I flattened. I could strangle briefly with Lisa's cousin, Natalie, when she became a Strigoi just before Drummond had shown up to save the day. Even as a new Strigoi, weak and uncoordinated, she could literally throw me around the room. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Suddenly, I felt stupid. I could see what Strigoi could do. My running in impetuous and trying to save the day could have only resulted in a quick death. I was developing into a tough guardian, but I still had a lot to learn, and one 17 years old girl could not have stood against six Strigoi. I opened my eyes. I'm sorry, I said, gaining control to myself. The rage that had exploded inside me diffused. I don't know where it had come from. I had a short temper and often acted impulsively, but this had been intense and ugly even for me. Weird. It's okay, said Drummond. He reached over and placed his hand on mine for a few moments. Then he removed it and started the car. It's been a long day for all of us. When we go back to Strain Valdemic's academic around midnight, everyone knew about the mascara. The vampire school day had just ended, and I had not slept in more than 24 hours. I was bleary eyed and sluggish, and Rivet ordered me to immediately go back to my dorm room and get some sleep. He, of course, looked alert and ready to take on anything. Sometimes I really was not sure if he slept at all. He headed off to consult with other guardians about the attack, and I promised him I could go straight to bed. Instead, I turned towards the library once he was out of sight. I needed to see Lisa, and the bond told me that there were she was. It was pitch black as I walked along the stone walkway that crossed the quad from my dorm to the secondary school main building. Snow completely covered the grass, but the sidewalk had been Melchior's cleared all the ice and snow. It reminded me of the poor Baedeker's neglected home. The Commons building was large and gothic looking, more suited to the mid level movie set than a school. Inside, the art of mystery and ancient history continued to permeate the building. Elaborate stone walls and antique painting warring with computers and fluorescent lights, fluorescent lights. Modern technology had a foothold here, but it were never dominant. Slipping through the library's electronic gate, I immediately headed for one of the back corners where geography and travel books were kept. Sure enough, I found Lisa sitting there on the floor, leaning against a bookcase. Hey, she said, looking up from an open book propped up on one knee. She brushed a few strands of pale hair out of her face. Her boyfriend, Christian, lay on the floor near her. His head popped up on her one knee. He greeted me by the way of a nod, considering the astonishing the sometimes flat up between us. That was almost on par with him, gave me a beer hug. Despite her small smile, I could feel the tension and fear in her. It sang through the bond. You heard, I said, sitting down cross legged. Her smile slipped, and the feelings of fear and uneasy with her intensified. I lacked that our psycho connection let me protect her better, but I don't really need my own trouble feelings amplified. It's awful, she said with a shudder. Christian shifted and linked his fingers through hers. He squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. The two were so in love and sugary sweet with each other that I felt like brushing my teeth after being around them. They were subdued just now, however, no doubt thanks to the mascara news. They are saying there were six or seven Strigoi, and the humans helped them break the wards. I leaned my head back against a shelf. News really did travel fast. Suddenly, I felt dizzy. It is true. Really? Asked Christian. I figured that was just a bunch of hyped up paranoia. No, I realized then that nobody knew where I could be today. I was, I was there. Lisa's eyes widened, shock closing into me from her. Even Christian, the poster child of smartass, looked grim, if not for horrible of it all. I could have taken satisfaction in catching him off guard. You're joking, he said, voice uncertain. I thought you were taking your qualifier. Lisa's words trailed off. I was supposed to. I said, it was just a wrong place and wrong time kind of thing. The guardian who was going to give me the test lived there. Dreamed, and I walked in, and I could not finish. Images of the blood and death that had filled the Barrica house flashed through my mind again. Concern crossed both Lisa's face and the bond. Rose, are you okay? She asked softly. Lisa was my best friend, but I don't want her to know how scared and upset the whole thing had me. I wanted to be fierce. Fine, I said, teeth clenched. What was it like? Asked Christian. Curiosity filled his voice, but there was guilt there too. Like he knew it was wrong to want to know about such a horrible thing. He could not stop himself from asking, though. Lack of impulse control was one thing we had in common. It was. I shook my head. I don't want to talk about it. Christian started to protest, and then Lisa ran a hand through his silk black hair. The gentle up sliced him. A moment of awkwardness hugged between us all. Reading Lisa's mind, I felt her desperately group for a new topic. They say this is going to mess up all of the holiday visits. She told me after several more moments. Christian's aunt is going to visit, but most people don't want to travel and they want their kids to stay here where it is safe. They are terrified this group of Strigoi is on the move. I had not thought about the ramifications of the attack like this. We were only a week or so away from Christmas. Usually, there was a huge wave of travel in the Morai world this time of year. Students went home to visit their parents. Parents came to stay on campus and visit their children. This is going to keep a lot of families separated, I muttered. And mess a lot of royal get togethers, said Christian. His brave seriousness had vanished. His slender air was back. You know how they are this time of year, always competing with each other to throw the biggest parties. They won't know what to do with themselves. I could believe it. My life was about fighting, but the moral certainty had their share of internal struggle, particularly with nobles and royals. They waged their own battles with words and political alliance, and honestly, I preferred the more direct method of hitting and kicking. Lisa and Christian, in particular, had to navigate some troubled waters. They were both from royal families, which meant they got a lot of attention both inside and outside of academic. Things were worse for them than most of the Morai royals. Christian family lived under the shadow cast by his parents. They had purposefully become Strigoi, trading their magic and mortality to become immortal and substitute on killing others. His parents were dead now, but that don't stop people from not trusting him. They seems to think he could go Strigoi at any moment and take everyone else with him. His abrasiveness and dark sense of humor don't really help things either. Lisa's attention came from being the last one left in her family. No other Morai had enough Dragmorai blood in them to earn the name. Her future husband could probably have enough somewhere in his family tree to make sure her children were Dragmorais. But for now, being the only one made her kind of a celebrity. Thinking about this suddenly reminded me of the warning scrawled on the mirror. Nazonia wheeled up in me that dark anger and the despair stirred, but I pushed it aside with a joke. You guys should try solving your problems like we do. A fist fight here and there might do you royals some good. Both Lisa and Christian laughed at this. He glanced up at her with a sly smile, showing his fangs as he did. What do you think? I bet I could have take you if we went on one on one. You wish, she teased. Her troubled feelings lightened. I do, actually, he said, holding her gaze. There was an intense sensual note to his voice that made her heart race. Jealousy shot through me. She and I had been best friends for our entire life. I could read her mind, but the fact reminded. Christian was a huge part of her world, and he played a role I could never, just as he could never have a part of a connection that existed between me and her. We both sort of accepted, but don't like the fact that we were had to split her attention. and at times it seems that truths we held for her sake as was paper thin. Lisa brushed her hand against his cheeks. Behave. I am, he told her, his voice still a little husky. Sometimes, but sometimes you don't want me to. Groaning, I stood up. God, I'm going to leave you guys alone now. Lisa blinked and dragged her eyes away from Christian, suddenly looking embarrassed. Sorry, she murmured. A delicate pink flush spread over her cheeks. Since she was pale like all Mora, it actually sort of made her look prettier. Not that she needed much help in the department. You don't have to go. No, it's fine. I'm exhausted. I assured her. Christian, don't look too broken up about seeing me leave. I will catch you tomorrow. I started to turn away, but Lisa called me. Rose, are you sure you're okay? After everything that happened? I met her jarred green eyes. Her concern was so strong and deep that it made my chest ache. I might be closer to her than anyone else in the world, but I don't want her worrying about me. It was my job to keep her safe. She should not be troubled about protecting me, particularly if Strigoi had suddenly decided to make a hit list of royals. I flashed her a saucy grin. I'm fine, nothing to worry about except you guys tearing each other clothes before I get a chance to leave. Then you better leave, said Christian dryly. She elbowed him, and I rolled my eyes. Good night, I told them. As soon as my back was to them, my smile vanished. I walked back to my dorm room with a heavy heart, hoping I don't dream about the barricades tonight.